Hey everyone, Nikki Bowman here with this week's book 3 review. As you know, every week I take a management or leadership tome, might be a new one, might be a classic. You may have heard of it, it may be completely obscure, but I give it a review, I give it mark out of 3 and give you 3 key takeaways. So this week it is Reality-Based Leadership by Cy Wakeman. Now I saw Cy speak at a conference a couple of years ago and was moved to pick up the book on the basis of her talk, which I thought was great. Now, the statistic that she quoted in that talk is that 2 hours per employee per day in every organization is spent on drama. So what's drama? It's gossip, it's speculation, it's whinging and whining and complaining. So I just have used that so often and it always gets a huge reaction from people. The thesis of her work is this, is that leaders just have to get real. And a lot of the issues that we see in workplaces, including disengagement and people wasting time with the drama, come down to the fact that people won't face reality and act accordingly. So the first big takeaway, and this really underlies a lot of the work, is that we tell ourselves stories about what happens at work, right? So someone passes you in the corridor and snubs you, or someone doesn't get you a report on time. And instead of just dealing with that fact, we build a story around it. And the story might be, oh, they hate me. Oh, my position's under threat. Oh, that department are hopeless. They're lazy. They're useless. They're a protected species. So can you hear that all of those things are stories, often which are created from one incident? Now, sometimes those stories turn out to be true, but more often than not, we're not dealing with a fact, we're dealing with the story we've built around it. And when we try and do that, that's when we dive into the drama. And that's when we as leaders make the wrong decisions and act from emotion and act on the basis of inaccurate information. So the first piece is we need to get to the heart of stick to the reality, stick to the actual factual event that happened and deal just with that. The second takeaway is as a leader, the best way to move anything forward is to ask a couple of questions, to say, how can I help? And what can I do to add value to you now? So when an employee comes to you and they're full with the drama, because they won't all remember that they just have to stick to the facts of, oh, someone looked sideways at me in the corridor or sales didn't get me that report on time. When they come to you with your drama, you have to say, how can I help? How can I add value to you? There's a really powerful simplicity about that I really enjoy. And it really starts to then force the other person to think hard about, oh, what practical steps can we take to move the situation forward? If that report's late, what needs to happen now to make things good? Which is another question that comes up. What do we do now to make things good, right? The third takeaway is where I take a little bit of issue with the way it's framed, but the philosophy of it is great. And that is, Cy is saying lead, don't manage. And she's distinguishing those by saying leaders are sort of operating up here. They're looking out for the vision. They're looking at the bigger picture, and they shouldn't be in the weeds managing. I agree with that, but not in the way it's framed, okay? It's not leading versus managing in my view. It's about doing work at the appropriate level that you're at in the organization. So if you think of an organization like a pyramid, one of my models is all about the hierarchy of work. And at the top, you're the CEO and you're supposed to be doing the big picture stuff, work, 3, 5, 10 years out. That's what you're supposed to be working on. Obviously, you shouldn't be working down in the weeds, but that's not because you're a leader and not a manager, because you're still managing your team. So you still have managerial responsibility. It's just that it's different. And as you go up the ladder, it changes. And that's the recognition here. And I do take issue with saying it's leading, not managing, because at what point in the hierarchy are you suddenly a leader and not a manager? There isn't a point. You are always a leader and a manager of people throughout the hierarchy. It's the complexity of work that you do and the nature of work that you do in that leadership and management role that changes. So because I took issue with that a bit based on my own models of work, I'm giving the book 2 out of 3 because I really do like the way that Sy stresses the need to just get real about what's actually going on and lead people into the right conversations to get the right outcomes. Thanks. That's this week's 3 View, and I will see you next week.